They can take everything from you. Your home. Your family. Your body. Your name. I know this because they took all of it from me. In Auschwitz, they stripped me naked. They shaved my head. They tattooed a number on my arm and told me that's who I was now. Not Viktor. Not Dr. Frankl. Just a number. They could decide when I ate, when I slept, when I lived, when I died. They had total control over every external aspect of my existence. But here's what they couldn't touch. Here's what no guard, no system, no circumstance, no tragedy could ever take from me. The freedom to choose my response. The freedom to decide what this meant. The freedom to choose my attitude. And that freedom, that tiny space between what happens to you and how you respond, that's where your power lives. That's where your humanity lives. And no one, nothing, can take that away unless you give it to them. Let me tell you about the moment I discovered this. It was early morning. We were lined up for roll call. Hours standing in the freezing cold. A guard was walking down the line, and he stopped in front of me. And for no reason, just because he could, he hit me across the face with his rifle. Hard. And I felt the rage rising in me. The humiliation. The hatred. Every cell in my body wanted to respond with violence, with anger, with collapse. And in that split second, I realized something. He could force my body to stand there. He could hit me again if he wanted. He could kill me. But he couldn't force my internal response. He couldn't make me hate him. He couldn't make me feel like a victim. He couldn't make me lose my dignity. Those were my choices. And in that moment, standing there with blood in my mouth, I chose. I chose not to hate him. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I refused to give him power over my inner life. I refused to let him turn me into something I wasn't. And that choice, that tiny moment of inner freedom, changed everything. Because I realized that no matter what they did to my body, my spirit belonged to me. No matter what circumstances I was in, I could still choose who I was going to be in those circumstances. Not what I would do, they controlled that. But who I would be. How I would face it. What meaning I would give it. That was mine. That was the one thing they couldn't touch. And this is the freedom most people don't know they have. You think you're trapped. Trapped by your circumstances. Trapped by your past. Trapped by other people's expectations. Trapped by your limitations. And in many ways, you are trapped externally. There are real constraints. Real obstacles. Real things you can't change. But internally? You're free. Completely free. Free to choose your attitude. Free to choose your perspective. Free to choose your response. Free to choose what meaning you'll create from what you're experiencing. But here's the problem. Most people give away this freedom voluntarily. Not because someone takes it, but because they don't realize they have it. Something bad happens, and they automatically react. Someone insults them, they get angry. Someone disappoints them, they get bitter. Something fails, they get hopeless. It's automatic. Stimulus, response. Stimulus, response. Like a machine. And they think that's just how it is. That's just how humans work. Someone pushes your button, you react. But that's not true. Between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. It might be a tiny space. A fraction of a second. But it's there. And in that space lives your freedom. The freedom to pause. The freedom to choose. The freedom to respond instead of react. And the size of that space determines the size of your freedom. When that space is zero, when stimulus immediately triggers response, you're not free. You're controlled. Controlled by circumstances. Controlled by other people. Controlled by your conditioning. But when you can expand that space, when you can create even a moment of pause between what happens and how you respond, you reclaim your freedom. You reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of your response to circumstances. I remember a man in the camps, we called him Franz. And Franz had been a successful architect before the war. Had a beautiful life. And when that was all taken away, he became bitter. Angry. Every day was a litany of complaints. This is unfair. I don't deserve this. Look what they've done to me. And his bitterness poisoned everything. Made his suffering worse. Made the people around him suffer more. And one day I asked him, do you realize you're giving them exactly what they want? They want to destroy you. Not just your body, but your spirit. And you're helping them. You're doing their work for them. And he got angry at me. He said, what am I supposed to do? Pretend this is okay? Pretend I'm happy? And I said, no. Acknowledge the reality. This is hell. This is terrible. This is unfair. But then choose. Choose who you're going to be in hell. Are you going to be someone who's destroyed by it? Or someone who somehow, impossibly, maintains their humanity in spite of it? And he looked at me like I was crazy. But a few days later, I noticed something. He had started helping other prisoners. Sharing his small piece of bread. Offering encouragement. Nothing big. Nothing heroic. Just small acts of humanity. And one day I asked him what changed. And he said, I realized you were right. They can take everything external. But they can't make me become something I'm not. They can't make me cruel. They can't make me selfish. They can't make me lose myself. That's my choice. And I choose to stay human. That's the freedom I'm talking about. Not the freedom to change your circumstances, though sometimes you can. But the freedom to choose your response to circumstances. The freedom to choose who you'll be, even when you can't choose what happens to you. And this applies to your life right now. Right now, you're in circumstances you probably didn't choose. Maybe you're dealing with illness. Maybe you're dealing with loss. Maybe you're dealing with failure. Maybe you're dealing with people who hurt you. And you can't change those facts. The illness is real. The loss is real. The failure is real. The hurt is real. You don't get to pretend otherwise. But you do get to choose how you respond. Do you respond with bitterness or with grace? Do you respond with hatred or with understanding? Do you respond with collapse or with courage? Do you respond like a victim or like someone who's taking responsibility for their inner life? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Victor, my situation is different. You are in a concentration camp. That's extreme. My problems are smaller. Or bigger. Or different. And you're right. Your situation is different. But the principle is the same. The principle is that you always have this freedom. This ultimate freedom. The freedom that exists in the space between stimulus and response. The freedom to choose your attitude. And that freedom doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't require anything external. It's always available. Always. Let me tell you about a patient I had decades after the war. He was paralyzed from the neck down. Completely. An accident had taken everything physical from him. And when I met him, he was suicidal. And he said to me, I have no freedom. I can't move. I can't work. I can't do anything. What kind of life is this? And I said, you're right that you've lost external freedom. But have you lost internal freedom? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, can they force you to be bitter? Can they force you to hate your life? Can they force you to give up hope? Or are those your choices? And he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I never thought about it that way. I thought because I can't move, I have no freedom. But I can still choose my thoughts. I can still choose my attitude. I can still choose how I relate to this situation. And from that realization, everything changed. Not his physical condition. That stayed the same. But his experience of his condition. He started writing poetry using voice recognition software. Started counseling other people with disabilities. Started living again. Not because his circumstances changed, but because he exercised the one freedom that remained. The freedom to choose his response. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Whatever you're facing right now, whatever has been taken from you, whatever limitations you're dealing with, you still have this freedom. This essential freedom. This freedom that makes you human. The freedom to choose your response. The freedom to choose your attitude. The freedom to decide what this means for you. They can take your health, but they can't make you lose hope. They can take your success, but they can't make you feel worthless. They can take your relationships, but they can't make you incapable of love. They can take your plans, but they can't take your purpose. They can take everything external, but your internal freedom remains. Unless you give it away. And most people give it away without realizing it. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they give away their peace. Someone criticizes them, they give away their confidence. Something doesn't go as planned, they give away their joy. They hand over their internal freedom to external circumstances. They make their well-being dependent on things they can't control. And then they wonder why they feel powerless. But when you understand this freedom, when you really understand that you always have the power to choose your response, everything changes. You stop being at the mercy of circumstances. You stop needing everything to go right for you to be okay. You stop needing other people's approval to feel valuable. You stop needing success to feel worthy. Because your internal state is no longer dependent on external conditions. It's dependent on your choice. And that choice is always available. In the camps, I watched people in identical circumstances have completely different experiences. Same hell. Same suffering. Same loss. But completely different responses. Some became animals, fighting over scraps of bread, losing all sense of dignity. Others became saints, sharing their last piece of bread, maintaining their humanity against impossible odds. Same circumstances. Different choices. And those choices determined not just their experience, but who they became. Because here's something crucial. Every time you exercise this freedom, every time you choose your response instead of just reacting, you become stronger. You expand that space between stimulus and response. You increase your capacity for freedom. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The first time you pause before reacting in anger, it's hard. It takes tremendous effort. But the 10th time? The 100th time? It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. And this is how you build unshakable strength. Not by changing your circumstances, but by exercising your freedom within your circumstances. Not by controlling what happens to you, but by controlling your response to what happens to you. Not by avoiding suffering, but by choosing how you'll suffer. Will you suffer with dignity or without it? Will you suffer with meaning or without it? Will you suffer in a way that diminishes you or in a way that enlarges you? Those are your choices. Always. So let me ask you. Where in your life have you given away your freedom? Where have you made your peace dependent on circumstances? Where have you handed your power to other people? Where have you reacted automatically instead of choosing your response? Because I promise you, there are areas in your life where you've forgotten you're free. Where you've accepted external control over your internal state. Where you've become a prisoner not of circumstances but of your own automatic reactions. And I'm telling you, you can reclaim that freedom right now. Not by changing anything external, but by exercising your freedom to choose your response. Someone insults you? You can choose not to take it personally. Something fails? You can choose to see it as feedback, not as verdict on your worth. Someone betrays you? You can choose understanding over hatred. Not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to let their actions control your internal state. This is the freedom no one can take away. This is the freedom that survived Auschwitz. This is the freedom that exists in every human being, no matter their circumstances. The freedom to choose. The freedom to respond. The freedom to decide who you'll be, even when you can't decide what happens to you. And this freedom, this ultimate freedom, this is what makes you human. This is what gives you dignity. This is what allows you to face anything, endure anything, transcend anything. Because when you exercise this freedom, you discover something extraordinary. You discover that you're bigger than your circumstances. You discover that external conditions might shape your situation, but they don't shape your spirit unless you let them. You discover that the real you, the essential you, exists in a space that circumstances can't touch. And from that space of inner freedom, you can face anything life brings. Not because it's easy. Not because it doesn't hurt. But because you know that whatever happens to you, you still have this one power. The power to choose your response. And that power, that freedom, is everything.